Good morning. Hmm. Oh boy, we got some time on our hands now, don't we? Well, y'all do. I don't. I've got lawnmowers galore sitting out here. One thing you can do without leaving the house is mow your yard. These people gonna have some nice looking yards here if it ever stop raining. Where I am, anyway. But boy, there's a lot of us have got a lot of time we didn't have. So I want to talk to you about friendship, and I want to talk to you about making a friend, and just kind of go through about how that works, how that can work for you, because it's very apparent to me that although billions of people are now calling out to God for help that probably hadn't talked to Him in years, uh, it's most likely that the help we're looking for is, God help us stop this virus, God. Stop this. Don't let this attack us. Don't let me die. And because that's how well we know God, a lot of us. That's how much of a friend God is to us. He's the one we turn to in times of trouble, but so many of us only turn to Him in times of trouble. When things are going good, God, we'll talk later. I'm good right now. And according to God, that's not the way it's supposed to work. So, according to God, according to Jesus, we're supposed to be friends. We're supposed to be close friends. Jesus wants a close friendship with every single one of us. Now, if if we have a friend, let's just say that we go to a meeting or we go somewhere and there's just somebody that just kind of stands out to us a little bit, and we want to get to know that person a little better. We go up and we shake hands, or go up and stay 6 feet away, which is probably a really good idea to do right now. But we kind of begin a conversation, and it turns out that hey, well, maybe we're from the same part of the country, or we like the same football team, or we kind of see politics the same way, or we uh, we share a common interest, is what I'm getting to. Share a common interest, and we kind of start trying to keep in touch. Okay, well, we have time to, right now there's time for a lot of people to develop a friendship, a close friendship. But that's the first thing that has to happen. We need to share a common interest, and then we start finding, there's enough of a spark of friendship there that we start spending time together, and then we start growing close, and all of a sudden one of us opens up to the other one a little bit, and then the other one opens up back to us, and we start, there a level of trust begins because we share a common interest. We've spent time together, getting to know one another, and now so there is trust that will follow that. So if we feel like we only need God's help when things are going bad, we're not friends. That's not a friend. We see God as a rescue worker. If that's the only time we talk to Him. And I think personally, John chapter 15 is a wonderful description of friendship with Jesus. He's talking to his disciples here, and he's saying, I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Starting in chapter 15, verse 1. Any branch in me that does not bear fruit, that stops bearing, he cuts away, trims off, takes away, and he cleanses and repeatedly prunes every branch that continues to bear fruit to make it bear more and richer and more excellent fruit. You are cleansed and pruned already because of the word which I have given you, the teachings that I've discussed with you. Dwell in me, and I will dwell in you. Live in me, and I will live in you. Just as no branch can bear fruit of itself without abiding in or being vitally united to the vine, neither can you bear fruit unless you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever lives in me and I in him bears much abundant fruit. However, apart from me, cut off from vital union with me, you can do nothing. If a person does not dwell in me, he is thrown out like a broken off branch and withers, and such branches are gathered up and thrown into the fire, and they are burned. If you live in me, abide vitally united to me, and my words remain in you and continue to live in your hearts, ask whatever you will, and it shall be done for you. In other words, if his words are remaining in our heart, what are we going to ask for? We're going to ask for his will to be done. See, this friendship can only be developed on God's terms. What did and the men he was speaking to here, his disciples, his 12 disciples, the ones that he selected from the approximately 120 people that were following him, what's the first thing they had to do to begin to share a common interest with Jesus? They had to give up the agenda for the rest of their life. Whatever they thought their life was going to be like, and whatever their goals were, and whatever their this was, and their plan, if they had a plan, most of them probably didn't. I can't imagine Peter having much of a plan, but whatever it was, they had to set it aside and take up his agenda, take up God's agenda for this planet. And what was the next thing they had to do? To become vitally united, to develop the friendship with Jesus that he wants every single one of us to have. What did they have to do? They had to be with him daily. I mean, it was just, and he was with them, okay? With them. So we have to be in with Jesus daily to develop that kind of a friendship with him through the power of the Holy Spirit. And how do we do that? Romans 12, 1 and 2. Present your bodies, I beseech you, I beg you. There's a picture of Jesus begging us to present our bodies a living sacrifice so that we can be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewings of our minds daily. That is all kinds of important for somebody to grow close to Jesus. So we tell him in prayer, I reaffirm my sacrifice. I present my body to you, Father, a living sacrifice. Do not let me be conformed to this world. Let me be transformed by the renewing of my mind. And then there's another thing. Holy Spirit, please dwell in me and stand as Lord over my mind, disciplining me, correcting me. I know that what I think is wrong. I know that what you say is right, and I want to be right in you. So yes, we have to be wrong. Receiving salvation from Jesus is about admitting that we're wrong and we really don't want to be us anymore. It's much bigger than I'm sorry I did this, get me out of trouble. It's that I understand, I see who you are. Okay, the Holy Spirit has shown me who you are, and I want to be in you. I don't want to be me anymore. That's the beginnings of salvation. That's the mindset that actually, when Jesus sees that mindset and that level of enlightenment, I guess you would call it, I don't know. But when he sees that level of a person wanting to change, that's when he comes in and changes us. Okay, it's about being changed. It's not about trying to get to heaven or say whatever we need to say because we got a little conscience at that moment, and then going on and continuing to govern our life and saying, "Oh no, I'm good because I told Jesus I believed in him." We have to begin then when we tell him that and we don't act like it, we don't really mean it. See, and Jesus sees us all the way through. Look, read the letters to the churches in Revelation. Jesus was speaking to the churches through the Apostle John. And read it from the standpoint, go through those letters from the standpoint of Jesus knew exactly where those people were. Let me tell you something, Jesus knew them through and through. He knew everything that was going on there. He knows everything that's going on with you. He knows where your mind is. He knows where my mind is. And he knows whether or not, when I told him I didn't want to be me anymore, whether I really meant that or not. And he knows the same thing with you. And if you didn't really mean it, if you just tried to get out of trouble, I would go through that again and again and again and again and start spending time with him and developing a friendship. And, right now you've got a perfect opportunity to do it. As a matter of fact, I have not been led to pray for this virus to be over or for God to stop this virus. Not for 1 second. Do I enjoy the fact that people are suffering and dying? No. Do I enjoy the fact that we're scared to death? No. Neither does God. But unfortunately, that's the only thing that works with humans. You look how this world is turning back to God and crying out to God. People that hadn't thought about God in years are crying out to God now. Look how people are sharing their faith now. Not being afraid and not thinking, well, I don't want to be, I don't want to offend anybody. I want to be, We were promised that we would be offensive if we stood for Jesus. We're promised that people would hate us. We're promised that people would attack us and say all kinds of things. And I'm going to tell you something. If you know anything about my past, there's so much people could say about me. People could go on for years about the crazy I've done. But when they do that now, all that means is my reward in forever is increasing. And don't you want the same thing? Don't you want your reward to increase? Don't you want to stand at the judgment seat of God and Jesus look up at you and go, wow, come here, my friend. Because the way I see it, one of three things is going to happen there. There's going to be a very warm welcome from Jesus when you take your place at the judgment seat of God. There's either going to be a very warm welcome from Jesus. There's going to be okay, yeah, you really did believe in me, but you never made a disciple. You never became close enough friends with me that I was really able to make you be what you were intended to be. But you did. You were. I did add your name to the Lamb's Book of Life, so you get in, but you will always be in lack, and you will forever be embarrassed in the kingdom of heaven. Or, I never knew you. Father, I'm sorry, but their name's not here. I don't know them. And you will and at that point in time, I believe that whoever gets told that will leave heaven like a missile, just like heaven, just like Jesus said he saw Satan cast out of heaven like a lightning bolt or a meteor, something that just went, pew, and that's it. So, how much do you want to develop this friendship that you need to have with the creator of the universe? Right? What's the third thing we have to do to become close friends with somebody? You have to share their interests. What's Jesus' interest? Jesus is interested in us reaching everybody on this planet, giving them the option, telling them how much his Father loves them, what he did for them, so they can make an informed decision whether or not they want to be changed, whether or not they don't want to be them anymore. It's the only thing he told us to do, and what Jesus actually did for those 3 years with those 12 men that he's talking to here in John chapter 15 was he took them out into the world and he showed them how to do it. He has a very specific strategy for reaching the world. It's called making disciples. It is called presenting. It is done by presenting the option, and those who believe and are saved, then we train them. We are with them daily, providing information and encouragement and holding them up in prayer until they grow strong, until they spend enough time with Jesus, they have enough information, they have enough encouragement that when they begin to speak, they cannot help but share the gospel because Jesus' words abide in them, and they reach others, and they train others, and others train others. And that's the way the church in the book, that's the way Jesus' body did it in the book of Acts. That's why they multiplied. Acts chapter 6, verse 7. They increased greatly? No, they multiplied all out, flat out, wide open. Find a lexicon, look at those two words in Acts chapter 6 in verse 7. Some translations even say multiplied greatly, but it was even more than greatly. It was like they exploded. Okay? You see, in my lifetime, I've never seen a church multiply. Not one time. Because we're all involved in building buildings and going to them. And you know where you find that in here? You know where you find build a building and go to it in here? Nowhere. It's not in there. That all started in the early 300s, sometime in the 300s, that at the behest of a Roman emperor that was the most powerful man in the world and thought God was on his side and thought God's going to help him do what he wanted to do. So he taxed all the other religions and built some big, got all these people involved in building these big fancy cathedrals to God. Jesus was a carpenter. If building church buildings and going to buildings once a week was the way to reach the ends of the earth so he could return, how many wouldn't he have, everywhere he went, wouldn't he have, they went to Galilee and built a building. They went to Capernaum and built a building. When he came into Jerusalem, he bought land and raised money and built a building. It's not in there. He just that us building church buildings and getting our focus on what we can run to that building or do, or what we can go to that building or do, or how we can meet at that building, and how we can take care of that building, and how good that grass needs to look for God, and all that stuff, is the reason, a lot of the reason, that, almost 2,000 years after Jesus was here, Satan is still allowed to exist. He is tickled to death that we're all focusing on getting a group of people together and finding some place to meet once a week, and then figuring out how to get enough money and borrow enough money to put up another church building, or go buy an old one and fix it up. He couldn't be happier that we're so heavily involved in that. Why? What's in this for Satan? He knows his end is coming. He knows he's defeated. So if you know those things are happening, what's your only option? To put it off as long as you can. And he moves about like a lion seeking who he can destroy. Why? Because as long as he can keep destroying people and taking them away and destroying their friendship with Jesus, just being a stumbling block to everybody and creating all these problems and behind everything evil, he gets to stay. He's not, as long as, until we reach everybody with the gospel, he is allowed to remain here. Matthew 24:14, Mark 13 and 10, when the gospel has been preached to all nations, and go look up the word nations. Find a lexicon. There's an app online called Bible Hub. You can see what that word means. It means the sum of all parts. In other words, everybody, every person that God has put here needs the option of coming, be presented with the option of coming into the family. Then the end of this age will come. When the end of this age comes, Jesus returns. Somehow heaven and earth are combined, and Satan is no longer allowed to exist. You see, we want to do all these little things. We want to get involved in our local church, and we want to think local and help people around here. That does not line up with what Jesus told us to do. Matthew 28:18 through 20. Go and as you are going is a better translation. That is not the command. The verb go is not the command of the passage. Make disciples is the imperative tense verb of that passage. Of all people, of all nations. That's what Jesus told us to do. So if we're friends of Jesus and we're close friends of Jesus and we're close enough to trust Jesus, okay, somewhere in that process, we're going to figure out that he knows what's right for the world and we don't. And we're going to figure out that he's going to show us, here's my way of doing things. And if you'll do this one thing, if you will make disciples everywhere make yourself available everywhere you can, I will bring people to you. I will use you to train them and present the gospel to them, and they will reach others, and others will reach others, and my body will begin to multiply like it did with the 12 I trained. Then that way I will establish a sustaining influence of the gospel in every region where there are people on this planet. Then every people will have heard the gospel. Don't worry about it if they don't receive you. Shake the dust off your feet and go on to the next one. If they receive you, then give them your peace, teach them my ways, and teach them, and take them out there and show them how to teach others. Then the gospel will reach everybody. Okay, right now, 40% of the world has never heard the gospel, and that's billions of people. Okay, a little over 3 billion. That's how well church going works. Doesn't it? It's basically ridiculous when you think about it. I mean, we could have all the money and time we spent building these buildings and doing all this kind of stuff, instead of just doing the one thing Jesus told us to do. This could have been over with a long time ago. Okay? I mean, the only way the spreading of the gospel works is for us to do it the way Jesus told us to do it. And that's for every single one of us to get involved in it. And for every single one of us to become a friend of Jesus, to get up out of bed, to get alone with him, to spend time with him, time in his word, time praying, time listening, time becoming close to him. So his agenda becomes our agenda. You see, when that happens, it won't take us long to reach these 3.1 billion people that have never heard of him. I mean, he's given us so many ways to do that. He's given me almost 40 men now on Facebook. I just started going on Facebook all over the world and telling them, hey, somebody loves you. And most of them won't know who. I mean, people are looking for love. Well, I tell them, okay, Jesus, do you know him? And if they don't know him and they want to know him, then I tell them about him. I've got a whole thing on Google Docs of scripts. I just cut and paste it. Just take them right through a process. They make it through the process. They're in a beginner disciple group. They make it through that. When they begin to make disciples, they move into a higher level group. Use an app called WhatsApp. Talk to them anytime I want to, pretty much, or anytime they want to talk to me. They just call me and we video conference. And through that, there's just in a very short time, there's developed a network of over 200 of them with the people they've discipled, and then the people they're discipling. They're into the 4th generation now. And somewhere between 20 and 30,000 people got saved last year. God saved them as a result of that, of just me just agreeing with Jesus, me just being stubborn enough about church for God to send a man called Herb Hodges my way a few years ago that said, oh, this is what you're really supposed to be about. this is what the Bible really says. Okay? This, this is what Matthew chapter 28, verses 18 through 20 really means. And yes, this means you and you and you and you and everybody in this room and every member of Christ's body is supposed to be involved in this, because this is what Jesus said. And it's the only way we're going to reach everybody. And it's the only way we're ever going to reach the point in time where Satan is no longer allowed to exist here. Evil is gone. God is back. Jesus is here. How many viruses we going to have then? None. How many hungry people? What did Jesus do when he fed the multitudes? Every one of them got fed with food left over every single time. We will never feed every hungry person. We'll never be able to care for every poor person. Nothing wrong with trying to help them if you've got extra. But that is not to become the focus of your walk with God. The focus of your walk with God is the mission. The mission is to reach everybody by making disciples the way he taught us to reach them, the way he taught us to build people. Which leads to multiplication, which leads to everybody knowing who created the world and what he sent his son to do. Then the end of this age comes, Jesus comes back, and we're good. Everything is good from that point forward. So that's what this says. Jesus wants to be your best friend. What do you want? What do you want? How do you want the conversation to go when you stand at the judgment seat of God? You've got time to think about that right now, okay? and there's really not anything else on this planet that you need to be thinking about until you got that settled. Okay? Do you want to stand at the throne of God and try to convince God to let you into heaven if you're even brave enough to open your mouth because you went to church every Sunday and listened to your pastor? Jesus said the Holy Spirit's supposed to be your leader. Do you want to stand at the judgment seat of God and say, and have Jesus say, well, you barely made it in. Gabriel's going to take you down this way to a village called Least, and your mansion is a pod. But at least, you made it. But, don't expect to participate in the real celebrations here. You're not going to rule any cities. You're not going to, you didn't get any of that because you just kind of let things go after that. You were not my friend. Or do you want Jesus to say, oh my gosh, you killed it down there, man. You did very well. Michael, mansion number 964 belongs to this one. Well done. See, that's your forever home. This is your 70 or 80 years place. And if you don't think time's going fast, what you get in your late 40s if you make it that long. This is like, what did it say? This is but a vapor compared to eternity. Is what the word says about that. It's time to start thinking about forever, and it's time to start thinking about who you need to know to handle forever correctly, and who you need to know, and who you need to be friends with to take as many people with you as you can. See, Jesus sees you two ways. He sees me as I am. He knows what I don't even want to use the word. He knows what he knows what a bad person I am. I'm seriously, I am a bad person. He knows how wrong I am. I know how wrong I am too, though. So that's the first step. But he also sees just like when he looked at Peter, he sees who I can be. He sees who you can be. At the same time, if he can get a hold of you and you can become close friends with him, and he can start kind of just molding you. Who you want to be friends with. Love you.